Hello, sister leaders. Hello, hello, hello. Dr. Karen Hills Prudent here. And look, when you see this red background, other than the fact that red is my favorite color because red is everywhere, but when you see this red background and you see Sister Leaders podcast, I am not alone. I have somebody wonderful with me. And so on today, I have a sister leader who is just going to share everything that she's doing in this space called life. And I can't wait because I got some questions so we can get all down in her business and find out more about her. Catherine Coles, welcome to the Sister Leaders Podcast.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello, everybody.
So, share with the sister leaders a little bit about who you are,
Mhm.
who's your ideal client, and what do you help them with? What problem do you solve?
So, I am the CEO and founding principal of a company called Decalo Leaders. We are a leadership development organization that is committed to building a community of principled leaders. Our focus is primarily on women leaders. And we are focused on how to help women lead differently through four key principles, applying four key principles to how they lead. The first one is know your impact on people. Know how you impact your team, how you impact other leaders, how you impact your colleagues. The second one is to build trust and influence on purpose. Often we assume that trust exists, or we just assume it will grow and we apply it to personalities. But trust is a behavior that needs to be built on purpose. And then our third one is to engage and empower your team through a compelling vision. Get them on board. You don't have to. I hear a lot about buying, getting people's buy-in. But if you have a compelling vision, you don't have to get people to buy in. And if you have a compelling vision that people can align with, they will follow you and stay with you. And then the fourth is to build a sustaining culture that will help people feel empowered, help people tied to your vision, and create a high-performing team that will ease the burden on women leaders because you're not doing it alone.
I love that. So, I got some questions.
Okay,
So
let's go.
let's go with my questions because I get excited about my questions because I'm getting ready to learn something about you. So my first question is: you describe leadership as both a responsibility and a privilege. How did that belief shape your leadership journey?
I think my leadership journey developed that belief more than anything with the other ways. And I've been both a leader and I've been a team member multiple times throughout my career. My first, and I've worked with leaders. I've coached leaders. I've worked with leaders to build high-performing, cohesive teams, both leadership teams and individual contributor teams. And what I've learned as I watch is that teams want more from their leaders than simply, I have the authority, therefore you have to do what I say. And even in my own role as an individual contributor, I found that I wasn't following all of my leaders. I was present, I did my job, but I wasn't following them. But when I found a leader that I believed in, a leader that had integrity, a leader that operated with ethically, a leader that poured into my career and my success and encouraged me to do better, I saw that they took leadership as a responsibility. I saw that they saw leadership as a privilege to grow other people. And that's how that was shaped because I realized that I chose to follow them, not because of their title, not because they were my boss, but because they treated me as a team member and a partner to achieve the organization's goals.
I love that. I love that. What does principal leadership actually look like in practice, not just
Mhm.
theory?
So you can't, principled leadership isn't theory. It is practice. Just its name itself, it has to be practiced. You don't theorize principles, you live them. And so in practice, leadership for you is an identity. It's part of who you are, not just what you do. And you live by a set of values that you have grown with, that have shaped you, that shapes how you show up for people, that shapes how you make decisions, that shapes what you believe. Well, that communicates actually what you believe. And so you can't just create theory around principled leadership. It's something that has to be lived. Um, I had an example in my head. An example is this. I had a role and I received a new manager. A new person was assigned, a new vice president whom I reported to. My old vice president left, a new one came on board, and there was something that showed up that they wanted to do that was benefiting them, but I didn't feel like it was necessarily benefiting the person that she was trying to retain. But the person, I was a consultant, so the person needed an assignment. And she wanted them to stay in a particular role that paid them less. They had an opportunity, however, to go to another role that would pay them more. And her focus was on how to meet her need versus how to give them the choice to decide how they wanted this career to grow. As a principled person, and even though, and as a principled leader, because I was a leader reporting to a leader, I felt it was my responsibility to let her know, to tell her how that action, that behavior may show up, how it may be perceived, what the optics were. And I had a choice. I could keep my mouth shut and say it's none of my business, or I could speak up and share with her what the optics were. And this wasn't because I was angry. Sharing with her the optics was for her reputation as well as for the good of the person who we were trying to assign to, how make sure that they had an assignment. It wasn't received well, but I had to take the risk. That for me was living by my principles.
I love that. I love that um, you know, as leaders, we have to have courage to make those difficult decisions, to have those difficult conversations sometimes. And risk is part of leadership. And a lot of people, we don't talk enough about it,
Right.
courage, risk, and all of that. But I like that example that you shared. So, how do leaders, such as yourself, how do leaders maintain integrity while when navigating high pressure or even politically complex environments?
First, you have to be clear on what your values are. You have to know why you chose to lead. What is your leadership goal? What is your leadership identity? And do you want to be true to your leadership identity, or do you want to be carried along by the political landscape of the organization or the system? That's the first one. And that's the first part of my model. And then no, and so you have to live by your values because if you don't demonstrate your values, your team will not follow you because you're making decisions. But if you are like switching according to where the political wind blows, your team sees that. It's not hidden. And so you need to make a choice. Do I want to live by my values? Do I want to make sure that I hear my team members? Do I want to partner with them to achieve our organizational goals? And do I want them to trust me? Am I trustworthy? So it's a much longer story, but that's the baseline right there.
Let's talk about blind spots. So, what are the most common leadership blind spots you see across industries?
The most common leadership blind spot is that people don't know how they're impacting other people. So, one of the things that you hear a lot about, one of the first things you hear in leadership development is you need to be self-aware. You have to have self-awareness. And self-awareness is important, but it will only get you so far if you don't understand or you don't pay attention or you don't ask or you don't listen and learn how you are impacting other people when you make the decisions, when you operate in your behavioral lane, knowing who you are. If you don't communicate how you show up and ask for feedback, you get blindsided every time because people, if depending on how you respond, if you respond to feedback in a way that says, I'm going to defend who I am, no one's going to give you feedback. And so you will be constantly blinded and blindsided by your impact on people. They're not going to show up based on what you said. They're going to show up based on how you make them feel.
Yes, yes, yes. That reminds me of a phrase by Maya Angelou that people will remember how you make them feel. So let's talk about organizational complexity. So you've worked across federal, corporate, nonprofit, and faith-based organizations. What leadership challenges are universal among those different industries?
People, it's people. Every leader I've ever talked with in any industry, they're coming to me because they are struggling to get their people on board with whatever goal, whatever mission, whatever purpose needs to have happen. I can't tell you how many leaders have said to me, I would be great if I didn't have to manage people. But if you don't manage people, are you a leader?
that part, that part right there. Awesome, awesome. And regardless of systems and processes, we still need people. People are
Right,
still the backbone of every organization.
right.
So I totally agree with you. What's the first thing you assess when you enter an organization that's experiencing dysfunction or even misalignment?
I first talk to the person, the primary person who hires me, the person who says, I need help with my team. I want to get their perspective. So I develop questions based on what they say their problems are, which could be communication, could be some people think that they need to train their people more. That's usually not the case. There's something else that they have not received feedback on that they're not aware of. But I collect information from them. Then I take the same questions to their team and I ask their teams, what do they think is going on? What's their perspective? So what I'm looking for first is, does the leader and the team both agree on what the problems are?
Hmm.
9 times out of 10, they might agree on what the problems are, usually not. But what they really don't agree on is what the source of the problem is, what the root is, and whose behavior is at fault.
Absolutely. And a lot of people don't dig deep enough to uncover the root cause.
Exactly. So my data collection, I collect it, I synthesize it, I summarize it, and then I share it with everyone who contributed to it and the leader first to give them perspective, to help them, wrap their minds around it. And then I share it with the team to make sure that I heard them accurately, that what they shared with me is exactly what they sense is going on. So I then validate it with everyone.
Absolutely. So, how do you help leaders move from overwhelm to clarity in complex systems?
How do I help leaders move from overwhelm to clarity and complex systems? That's an interesting question because I think all systems are complex to some degree because we live in a complex environment,
Okay,
right?
okay. So,
Things,
answer it how you see fit then.
Okay, no. I was going to go there, but I just like I wanted to make that let people know we live in a constantly, technology, um, the internet
Hmm.
is moving at a pace that has never changed, at the pace that has never moved organizations before, which creates a complexity. The world has gotten smaller, faster, therefore all organizational systems are more complex, which is what's is very frustrating for people. But it's about conversation. It's about I create, I build, I help them master the art of, again, building trust in their team, building trust with each other, having conversations, involving them in the conversation. So leaders that I have worked with think that they have to have all the answers. And it is a complex system. And in a complex system, no one person has all the answers. And so my work has been to create the relationship between the team and the leader and create that partnership where the leader can tap into the intelligence of their team because they're the ones on the front lines doing the work. And so that takes off just the fact that I don't have to make all the decisions. Now, yes, there's a space where, I have to make the final decision, but I want to hear from all of you. I want to hear your perspective. I want you to tell me what am I not paying attention to? What am I missing? Because I'm missing something because my decisions are going to come from how I see the picture, but I'm going to miss something. So I have to ask my team, what am I not paying attention to that will be a risk to the success of what we're trying to accomplish here? And also learning to share accountability across the team. Instead of if you, Karen, were on my team and then Chris was on my team and you need something from Chris, instead of you coming to me to say, Chris isn't pulling his weight, go to Chris directly and say, have the conversation in a way that creates collaboration. That reduces overwhelm exponentially.
Absolutely. And I've heard many times in the workplace environment, people say, well, why didn't they come directly to me?
Right.
It also creates some type of something between those two employees, the fact that they couldn't come to one feels some type of way that the other couldn't come to them directly.
Exactly. So I coach the leader. I don't teach the leader. I coach the leader to create an environment and team meetings that opens the door, letting them know that I need you all to talk to one another, not to use me as your go-between.
Hmm. So let's talk about what separates organizations that successfully navigate change from those that are unsuccessful.
Structure is what I'm going to say. Change takes structure, and change is constant. And so understanding a change structure that will help you navigate through. And I do change navigation, not change management. So developing a structure that will help you navigate through change is what's going to help you be successful. And there are lots of different models that will help you do that. And I'm aware of both of them. My favorite model is one that says, what do we need to let go of? Okay. Let's be real clear and let's go ahead and mourn that because people mourn the things. They mourn they get really comfortable with what they do. And when they can't do it anymore, they really do physically mourn that. So let's have that conversation and let's help them understand what's going to replace that. All right. But let's not only help them understand what's going to replace that, but give them the goal. This is where we need to go. This process isn't going to get us there. Let's work together to develop a process that will get us there because we got to let this one go. This is going away. but engage them in having the conversation. Most organizations that involve change do not plan the navigation process.
Mhm.
And they say, we're going to do this. And then they just start training people and expecting them to shift automatically. If you don't let people feel it and mourn it and then engage them in having the conversation on how we're going to get there, they will really just secretly do a workaround around what you want them to do. And then just wait for you all to give up. Because a lot of change initiatives people just give up on.
I like that. I like the fact that you said let them mourn. That I like that because I am someone who readily accepts change. I like change. I like progress. I like change. You can't have progress without change. But there is, I'm moving from familiarity to unfamiliar when you're moving to a new process, a new system, a new whatever, fill in the blank. And so there is a degree of mourning, not necessarily a bad thing, but there is a period because you aren't as familiar and confident with the
Right,
new process just yet,
right,
so I
right.
love that. So let's talk about your successes because I'm sure you have plenty, and so we just want to hear about a couple of them. So here's one that we want to hear about. Can you share an example where a simple shift created a major organizational breakthrough?
Mm, mm. I'm just struggling here with what's a simple shift.
However you
Okay,
define
I
it.
got one. I have one. I do
Yep.
have one. I worked with a team and they were building a new role. It was a brand new role. I was hired to help them build this new role, the team itself. Um, but one of the things for them, and they would roll it out to internal clients, and I would support that. One of the challenges, however, was you have to live it in order to embrace it, embody it, in order to help people make that transition. And so we worked on building our team. And so we created norms, a simple shift. We created meeting norms. How would we run our meeting? And we created decision pathways. How are we going to work together to make decisions that we can all get on board with so that we're not leaving the meeting and having sidebar conversations about how something's not going to work? So we created what we call simple rules of how we are going to work together. One of them is our meetings before we would start our meetings with check-ins. How do we have, and that is just a simple check-in. What's going on? What's top of mind? What's your biggest challenge right now? It could be any question. Use the weather to, use the weather terms to share how you are feeling today. And that could be stormy, but I can see clear skies up ahead, or I could see a tornado whirlwind right now, right? And it was okay. It let us know what the mindset was. Giving people time to put that on the table impacted how they partnered in the conversation, how they connected, how they stayed engaged in where we had to go. And we all understood where they were. And so we were able to give them that grace.
Good. I like that. I like that. Absolutely. So let's talk about, I can't leave today without talking about culture, trust, maybe a little bit of performance. And so you focus heavily on building cultures where people can do their best work. What are the non negotiables of a high performance culture?
Candor, truth telling. That's a non-negotiable. And there are a lot of leaders, there are a lot of high level leadership development gurus that would agree with me. But candor, you will not get a high performing team if your leaders, if your team members do not feel safe to share what concerns them about an idea, a thought, um, an approach in the meeting.
Yep. That
Another one I
psychological
think is
safety.
that psychological safety is critical. And that's why our fourth element of our model about creating a sustaining culture, it focuses on psychological safety. How do you have productive conflict? That's another non-negotiable. You have to be able, your team needs to be able to engage in productive conflict together, not me and you, and then we take it to our leader. It has to happen between you and I. And sometimes on teams that have been high performing, that conflict happens in the meeting. And that is important because it also demonstrates that it is possible to speak up safely without fear of retaliation and share that idea sounds like it's a good one, but here's what's missing that concerns me that I think is going to create risk. Being able to say that in the meeting and not in sidebars after the meeting is a non-negotiable.
Absolutely. The meeting after the meeting.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm trying. That meetings after the meetings will not result in a high-performing team. Absolutely will crush your culture.
Absolutely. I've been part of some meetings. I've been the instigator of some meetings after the meetings too. So I think we all have throughout our career. How do leaders intentionally build trust, especially in environments where it has been broken? How do you get back on
Mm,
track with trust?
mm. When you need that. So there are there's a model that was developed and introduced back in the 70s, 80s. I can't remember when. I use it in my work. I use it in my workshops, and I allude to it in my master class. But we teach it, we practice it, we learn how to apply it in my leadership lab accelerator. And that is a three-part model. And there are lots of trust models out there, but there are a long list of things that you have to do. This one is really simple. People have to be able to trust your ability. You have to demonstrate that you can do what you say you can do. They have to be able to trust you, that you have benevolence towards them, that you care about what's important to them. And you have to operate with integrity, that you have to do what you said you were going to do. And you have to keep your word, right? And so those three things will, one, help you build trust on purpose. And if you do those three things, you also exponentially increase your level of influence because people know, one, Katherine is good at what she does. I know she's going to keep her word. Two, Katherine will not leave until we have a transformation here. She's not just going to do her workshop and walk away. She will walk alongside us as we have the transformation. And three, Katherine will keep her promises. If it gets broken, which it will, because I have broken trust because I've broken someone's trust because I stepped on a value that they had that I didn't know they had. That wasn't a value to me, so it didn't even consider. And that is I disagreed with something they said. And from their culture as a woman, that insulted them. And I did not know that until after I broke it. So first I had to come to them and try to understand. And I actually did this. I practiced this in a workshop. We did this together because I broke the trust in the workshop. And I had to say, I don't understand what I did to break your trust. Can you help me understand what happened? So first I had to listen to them. I have to listen to what is bothering them. What is their concern? What did I do? Because I don't. So now I'm asking for feedback.
Hmm.
And then we partner together. What can I do differently? I agree, they agree. What do you need me to do differently so that both of us can be respected in what we need? How can we partner together to create a dialogue, conversation, a partnership to do that? And then I ask as a leader, this is what I can commit to do. Will this work? Yes or no, back and forth. We'll continue the conversation if it's a no. And if I fall, because I will, so it's not really if, when I fall, when I make the mistake, I need you to come to me and say, here's what happened. Here's how it impacted me. What was going on. And so it's a constant conversation back and forth.
I love that. I love that. And I sometimes I think people don't talk enough in situations that involve conflict. People, one party has a tendency to shut down or be
Mhm,
very short. And
mhm,
so you aren't able to find out what really went on here so that you can address what
mhm,
really went on here because of that lack of fluency,
mhm.
having that fluid communication where it's flowing back and forth between the two parties. So I love that. So we had mentioned psychological safety briefly before. I do
Mhm.
want to touch on this question I have between its relationship. What's the relationship between psychological safety and performance in your experience?
By experience, psychological safety tends to accelerate performance because we build, it's a constant conversation, right? So if I am unclear, if you give me an assignment as if you were my leader and you're talking to me and you give me an assignment and I am not clear on what the outcome is, psychological safety gives me the safety, the assurance that I can come to you and I say, I just want to make sure that we are on the same page. Here is what I think you were asking me to do. Here's what I think the intended outcome is. Are we on the same page? And if they don't tell me what their expectations are, psychological safety allows me the security to go in and say, what are your expectations? Where do you need me to what milestones do you expect from me? So I'm asking you to clarify your expectations rather than my assuming them. In a organization that is not psychologically safe, I am not going to feel comfortable coming to ask you, as my leader, what expectations do you have of me? What expectations do you have of this project? Clarifying timelines that the leader didn't remember to give that to me. I've seen a lot of individuals, contributors say, they didn't tell me, so not my problem. But it is my problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be held accountable for it.
Yep. Yep.
But psychological safety starts at the beginning and it takes a little more time at the beginning. But by investing that time in the beginning to create that environment where we feel psychologically safe, we are clear on each other's expectations, and I know exactly what you want it to look like, it's going to accelerate the process.
Absolutely. So we've got a few more questions here. I do want to ask a few about women in leadership. What does influence look like for women leaders who want to operate at the executive level?
Hmm. That's interesting. I think influence at the executive level is the ability to collaborate across the organization system. In other words, I have to have the ability, my influence needs to not just be within my particular division and not just with my hierarchy boss. I need to have influence and understanding of how the organization works across my division. Now, what's going on? If I'm in HR, what's going on in operations and do I understand operations? Do I have a relationship? Do I spend time? Do I take time to have a conversation that's not even work related sometimes with my peer in operations? Do I have, that's what's building the influence so that in And urgency, when something is urgent, I have that confidence and that relationship to come to them and say, here's what's going on, here's what's happening, here's how it's impacting my team. What can we do to work this out together? How can we collaborate? Or
Mhm.
my team is having a glitch here. I think your team can help. Can I get some resource? Can we partner on some resources to make this happen together? And that's at the executive level. The executives, and the other piece about that influence is to have the influence to be able to remove barriers for my team. So if my team is hitting a barrier with another department, my influence needs to expand that I have a relationship with that leader in that department to remove that barrier for my team so that we can get the task what can get the goal accomplished.
Absolutely, absolutely. How can women lead with both authority and authenticity without being penalized for either?
How can they lead with both authority and authenticity without vulnerability?
Without being vulnerable. Okay.
Being vulnerable. Vulnerable has this, it's an interesting paradigm shift. People see vulnerability as a weakness, when in reality, it is a strength that opens up doors that you don't expect because people now see you as human. They see you as someone and that's what benevolence is all about. If I demonstrate that I care about what's important to you, then and we have a psychologically safe working relationship. I can be vulnerable and say, I don't have all the answers. And I think that you do have not all of the answers, but you have the answer that I'm looking for right now. That vulnerability is far reaches far than your authority alone or will go, but the vulnerability also expands your authenticity. And people assume that you'll be penalized for it, and something different always occurs.
What advice would you give to women who are highly capable but not being seen or heard in leadership spaces?
I would want to understand, how are you're capable, you have capabilities. And if you look at my workshops, you'll see that I don't teach competencies. I teach principles. And so I would want to have a conversation to find out, where is their influence. It's really important to know, how are you impacting those around you? Do they trust you? Does your team trust you? Does your leader trust you? Look at, how are you showing up with your ability? How are you showing up with a benevolence? When I come to you, and I do this with project managers all the time, when you come to me with something that you need to get accomplished, are you focused on your goal? Are you also paying attention and listening to my other priorities that I have going on? And are you willing to partner with me to navigate both? Are you seeking a win-win, or are you seeking a zero-sum outcome?
Oh, that's good. I like that. Repeat that. Repeat that for the people in the back pew.
Are you seeking a win-win, or are you seeking a zero-sum
Yes,
outcome?
I like that. I like that. So my closing question before you share with the sister leaders community how they can support you and where they can find you um, is this. If you could give every leader one operating principle to follow, what would it be?
Hmm. I've got to go back to my model, because my model is foundational on principles. And you think that they're not operational, but I will go with the big one because it incorporates all of them, and that is create a sustaining culture. Culture, and I love to use this one, and I attribute it to him, but it's not his. But culture will negate any strategy that you build. Culture does not happen by mistake. It will happen. I take that back. Culture will happen. All right. It will be created, but pay attention to what kind of culture you're building. And is this culture that you're building going to create the environment that you or anybody else wants to work in? Be that leader that people choose to follow, not just because you have a title, but because you're a team and you have a partnership.
I love that because I always say that leadership is not a title. It
Right.
is not a title. Way before I had a title, I was the go-to person that people were
Hmm.
trying to figure out why I keep having this influx of people coming in and out of my office. And it was because people wanted to run stuff past me. It's like, Lord, if my door opened one more time with somebody just, can I just run this past you? But become that go-to person. So yeah, leadership is not a title. So this has been wonderful. I didn't get to all my questions. I feel some type of way about it, but I'll get over it. So we'll have to bring you back maybe like the third or fourth quarter, um, and and ask you some more questions and let you share some more of your brilliance with us. But why don't you share with the Sister Leaders community what you got going on? Any books, any programs, any masterminds? I know you have quite a bit going on because you're popping up on my feed. And so don't hold back, share it all with them, and then where they can find you so that they can connect with you.
So I have a master class that I deliver every other week. The last one was last night, so I have the next one in 2 weeks. It's an hour-long master class. I take you through the model, and we talk about, and you walk away with text, with things that you can do immediately, at least 5 things you can do immediately to help a team that is misaligned. So that's what we focus on is a misalignment and the importance between expert leader versus a leader that people choose to follow, and how do you bridge that gap? So it's a fun time. It's a conversation, and I love it. That's every other Thursday. And then on May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, I am hosting a leadership lab accelerator. It will be a lab, not a lecture. It is an highly interactive 3-day workshop, 15 hours, Friday night, Saturday, and then Sunday. And you walk away with a 30-day plan on how to create a high-performing team and to shift your leadership to become the leader that people choose to follow. And I love to say that because I've seen leaders become the leader that people choose. And what happens is that you have people trying to get into their department, trying to get on their team. You don't have, you're not struggling to find people. People want to come and work for you. And then I have a book coming out that's in the editing stage right now. So the title is a working title, but the primary title is Decalo Destiny. That's the main title. And the current working subtitle is um, Four Principles Four Principles Key to Your Leadership Journey. So those are
So,
the highlights. And how do you reach me?
yes,
My
yes.
website, my website, all of this is on everything that I talked about is on my website except for the book. And that is my website is www.decaloliving.com. That's www.decaloliving.com.
DecaloLiving.com. Love it, love it, love it. So, Catherine, this has been wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I love playing in the leadership sandbox. So, I love talking to my peers. I am a lifetime learner, and so I love listening to other people's framework and how they lead other leaders in various spaces. So this has been very rewarding for me. And so before I close out, I will be remiss and I will get my hand slapped if I didn't mention the conference that's coming up. So it's that time of the year again. Here we are promoting the 2026 conference. It's October 2nd and 3rd at the Rivers Casino. So that we're going back to the casino for the third year. I love that casino. It's high tech and it just matches my brand. And look, check us out, sisterleadersconference.com. We have a lot going on. It's 2 full days of fun and we stay connected to our global community. So last year we had about 300 and something people that were live streaming from 6 different countries online, in addition to the people that were in the room. And so we are excited about the people that we can influence and impact on this year. And this year, our theme is purpose led profit focus, because my Dr. Karen, I can only speak for Dr. Karen, theory is that when you follow your purpose, the profits will come, as opposed to the
Mhm.
other way around. Sometimes some
Mhm.
bad stuff can happen when you're chasing a dollar. And so,
Mhm.
purpose led profit focus. And if you want more information, check out the website, sisterleadersconference.com. We're back at the casino. And so we're at the early stages of conference planning. But look, time waits for no one. Before you know it, October will be here. And so stay connected, connect with Katherine, because as you heard, good stuff, just good stuff. And so most of us are responsible for leading people and leading teams. And, it can be quite a headache when you don't have the development that you need and you don't have the knowledge that you need. And so definitely stay connected to her and check out her programs. So we have reached the end of another Sister Leaders podcast with another wonderful, wonderful, wonderful leader. Until next time, bye.